AskReddit by Mentor Menged. What event from the past 10 years do you think will be most remembered in history textbooks 50 years or 100 years from now, and why? COVID. People are already forgetting all the lessons of COVID. I don't know about a specific day, but 100 years from now, 2023 will be the year Ali broke out of the lab. It will be by far and away the most transformative human development we've had since major developments like the internet, electricity and fire. I'm genuinely flabbergasted that more people aren't talking about Ali. It feels like no one in my life, whether that be colleagues, friends, family, my mailman or whoever give a shit. I've been playing around with Ali for the last 9ish months or so, and I'm by no means an expert. But I know how to use it properly and build my own GPTs, and I am astounded that people aren't way more excited about this and like getting into it. I was actually at work, government department, and executives were requesting some insights from a consultancy, and I'm like, Ali literally has these capabilities right now and they just haven't a clue. I think COVID for sure, and maybe Russia-Ukraine war and Israel-Palestine war, depending of how much they will last. Few people say WWII because it's maybe a reason why it will start. Russia-Ukraine war will be taught in Europe. That damn gorilla. Dick's still out for hair and in the UK COVID and Brexit. Edit. And war in Ukraine. Brexit is certainly important in the history of the EU. Not an event, but the absolute lack of real action to address climate change despite overwhelming evidence of the disaster coming. Oh, there is action. They are just funding fossil fuels even more. I can't begin to imagine how a historian will write that insanity. Russian-Ukrainian war. Only if it escalates to a larger conflict and the 24th of February, 2022 becomes the historical starting date for WW3. Otherwise the COVID pandemic will get history's #1 spot and this one remains #2. COVID is already in history books and it isn't even over yet. We are currently a part of one of the biggest moments of the next 100 years and just don't realize it. The entire world literally changed in an extremely drastic way. Nothing is the same as it was pre-COVID. The world hasn't changed this much since 9/11. Cultures are different. Social life is different. People everywhere are different. There is a fight to get back to normal while no one even knows what that means anymore. The crazy part is, this COVID era ain't even over yet. I've seen COVID mentioned a lot. You've gone into a lot of detail. Can you explain further how cultures, social life and people are different? I live in Ors, and apart from WFH being more professionally acceptable, I legit can't think of any genuine long-lasting effects. Every time it comes up in conversation people kinda just go, oh yeah, remember XYX, then just move on. Those rich people who passed away in that unregulated submarine that was controlled by a PlayStation controller. Just another example of hey y'all watch this. Microplastics discovery, and what they will be found to have caused. Hadron Collider, dunno why, but I'm sure that has to lead to something remarkable for the human race. It already has. Check out the Higgs boson particle. Missing the opportunity to do something meaningful about climate change. This. Media figures and politicians spreading climate denial lies still in 2024 should be held accountable at some point. Our climate Nuremberg. I'd like to think that this period of history will be known as the social platform wars, and that in the future, we teach and discuss how this almost ended us, how people lost their grip on the truth and individuals lost the ability to see and recognize when they are wrong. We, the future world, now recognize that every idea isn't a good one. Not everyone should be allowed to believe they are special and that they have to be heard, and that detractors shouldn't be dismissed simply because you don't like what they have to say. America sleepwalking into a dictatorship. The tragic revelation that pop sensation Milli Vanilli were lip-syncing the entire time. Dude, that was over 30 years ago. There's going to be a Trump period. It's going to start at Brexit, maybe Haram, and cover consequences including COVID and the war in Ukraine. I think these are good ones, depending if the future aligns with this. That being the rise of celebrities pursuing political office in Western democracies like the USA. Also the rejection to some degree of globalization, immigration, integration in Western democracies to splintering into separate countries or even smaller. COVID is obvious, but also for its potential long-term impacts on China. War in Ukraine, hard to know what trend this will lead to as yet. I think the private sector being involved in space exploration with Bezos and Musk will have potential big implications if they eventually mine an asteroid independently of a nation state. The minor border scuffles between India and China may be remembered as the first indications of the major geopolitical issues of the mid-21st century. Deleted. I wouldn't count on it. The victors write the history books. Probably the pandemic. Google's paper on Transformers, since it made the REH possible. What paper are you referring to? That a sitting president tried to overturn the US presidential election by inciting an insurrection. And is the front runner in the following election. The fast decline of American democracy. When the nerds raided Area 51. Nothing has been normal since that day. The pandemic. First time most people alive today have lived through something like that. It changed the world both short term, with the lockdown and business closures, masks, etc., and long term, such as the increased popularity and practice of working remotely. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II. It was a historical reign in and of itself, let alone the challenges and expectations to move into a more modern era as she went. Okay, while I agree with those saying, her death is of little consequence for the grander geopolitical situation, we study the reigns of kings and queens to this day. The Brits even name entire eras based on the ruling monarch at that time. So it stands to reason that this second Elizabethan age will be as relevant for people in 100 years as the Victorian age is to people now, not relevant for everyday life but interesting as a historic era. Considering she lived through most of the other significant historic events so we are talking about here, I'd say, you get this one on a technicality. COVID-19. COVID, Ukraine, Gaza. The 1919 flu epidemic is still remembered from over 100 years ago. Events that shaped the geopolitics of the future.